A boot slipped on wet pine needles. The body slammed down hard against a fallen log. A branch cracked loose above and came whistling down. It missed by inches. Rain hammered through the trees, cold and hard. Somewhere in the dark, a wolf started up a low howl, and another one answered from the far side of the ridge. He pushed up onto his elbows. Mud in his beard. Blood under his hat. No food in 2 days. No shelter in 3. His name was Wade Coltrane, and 20 hard years working a cattle ranch had not prepared him for this kind of night. Then his hand brushed something flat under the leaves. Wood. Old wood. A door set into the ground. What was under that door had been waiting 87 years for someone with nothing left to lose to come looking for it. Stay with me on this one. Wade Coltrane had not slept under a real roof in 11 months. The bank had taken the ranch in late spring of the year before. They came with paperwork and a kind smile and the nicest pair of handcuffs you ever saw. And when they were done, the only thing Wade still owned was a buckskin gelding named Dollar, a Winchester rifle, a Bowie knife, and a hat that had belonged to his father. His wife Marie had died 2 winters before any of that. Cancer. Quick and merciless. They had no children. After she went, Wade ran the ranch alone for as long as he could, and a little longer than that. When the bank's truck rolled out of the front gate, Wade did not look back. He saddled Dollar, rolled what he could into a bedroll, and rode south. Just south. No plan past that. For 11 months, he worked any cattle outfit that would have him. A week here. 3 days there. Most of the men running things now were younger than his boots. Computer-printed brands. Helicopters for roundups. Nobody wanted a 63-year-old cowboy with bad knees and a 10-year-old horse. He ended up in a roadhouse outside a town called Buffalo. Bought a beer with the last loose change in his pocket. An old-timer 2 stools down, drunk and friendly, told him a story about a trapper's cabin somewhere up in the Bighorn foothills. 50 miles from anything, the man said. Built before either of us was born. Whoever was up there ain't been seen since the 30s. Nobody talks about it because nobody remembers it. But it's there. Wade nodded. He bought the man another beer. He memorized the bearings. He left at first light. He rode 3 days. The trail thinned. By the second day there was no trail, only old logging notches on trees and the occasional rusted-out can. The mountains pulled him up and up. Air thinner. Cold sharper. He was already hungry by the time the storm started rolling in off the ridge. He saw it coming an hour before it hit. Black wall of cloud. Lightning at the spine of the mountains. Dollar's ears went flat against his head. Wade tried to find low ground. He was not low enough. The first crack of thunder hit like a gun, going off 10 feet behind them. Dollar reared. Wade held on. The second crack came right on top of the first, and the third on his belt. The rifle on his back. The canteen at his hip half full. 40-some dollars in his vest pocket. His father's pocket knife in there too, the one Marie used to tease him about because the bone handle had gone yellow as old teeth. Everything else was riding south on Dollar's back. The rain came down in sheets. The light went out of the sky like somebody had cut the switch. Wade pulled his hat low and started walking the direction the cabin was supposed to be. Up the draw. East 2 ridges. He counted his steps. He counted them out loud because Hearing his own voice was the only thing keeping him moving. When he stopped counting was when the boot slipped. When he came up off the log with mud in his beard and blood under his hat, and his hand brushed the wood, he did not understand at first what he was touching. It felt like a piece of fallen door. It felt like wreckage. Then the shape of it came together under his fingers, and he understood. A storm cellar door, set into the ground, half buried in 80 years of leaf rot and pine duff. Lightning lit the trees behind him. For 1 second the whole forest went white, and in that second Wade saw the cabin. 20 feet uphill, black against the trees, roof sagging in the middle, but the four walls standing. The cabin everyone had forgotten. Wade got his feet under him. He put his hand on the cabin wall and walked it around to where the front door was. The latch gave with a push. The door swung inward on a long, slow squeal that ran clear up his spine. He was inside before the next thunderclap. Wade did not light a lamp that first night. He could not have found one anyway. He shut the door behind him and stood with his back to the wood until his eyes adjusted. The cabin smelled of nothing. Not mold, not rot, not animals. It smelled like a place that had been sealed up so long even the ghosts had moved on. He felt his way to the stove first. Cast iron, cold as the grave. He fed it dry kindling from a wood box that still had wood in it after 80 years, struck a match from the tin in his vest, and within 10 minutes had a small, honest fire burning. The fire showed him the room. A bed against the far wall. A table. 2 chairs. A shelf with a row of cans, brown with rust. A kerosene lamp on the table. A pipe in a tin tray. A leather book beside the pipe. Wade did not touch the book that night. He took off his wet coat and hung it on a nail. He drank the last of his canteen water. He lay down on the bed in his boots and his hat, and he was asleep before the wind hit the cabin again. He woke up to sun coming through a cracked window. The storm was gone. The forest outside was steaming in the morning light. Wade sat up slow. His ribs hurt. His head hurt. But he was warm and he was dry and he was alive, and that was 3 more things than he had a right to expect. He looked around the cabin in the daylight. It was a single room. A trapper's cabin, as the old man had said. Hand-hewn beams. A roof that sagged in the middle but had not yet given up. Whoever had built this place had built it to last. Wade walked to the table. He picked up the leather book. It was a journal, bound in soft leather that had cracked at the spine. Wade sat down in one of the chairs and opened it. The first entry was dated April 1898. The handwriting was careful and small. The man who wrote it had taken the time to make every letter clear, like a man who had taught himself to write and was proud of it. The first page said, "This is the journal of Henry Coltrane, born Tennessee, 1856, come west by way of Missouri after the war." Wade stopped reading. He read the name again. Henry Coltrane. Wade's grandfather had been named Henry. Wade had never met him. The story in the family was that Henry had left the Tennessee farm sometime around 1895 and never been heard from again. Wade's father had grown up calling another man father, and that man, the second father, had been the one whose old hat Wade had taken with him out of his ranch house when the bank came. Wade put the book down for a minute. He looked at the wall. He picked the book up again. He read for an hour. The journal was 39 years of one man's life. Henry Coltrane had come up into the Bighorn foothills in 1898 and built this cabin with his own 2 hands. He had trapped beaver and lynx. He wrote about the seasons. He wrote about the wolves. He wrote about a son he had left behind in Tennessee, a boy named Tom, and how he had meant to send for him and never had. The middle of the journal had a long stretch where he wrote almost every day about waiting. Just waiting. He kept thinking the boy would come up the trail one day. Grown up. Grown into a man. Looking for the father who had run. The boy never came. The last entry was dated September 8, 1937. It said, "Knees gone. Eyes going. Cannot trap this winter. I will not see another spring. Whatever I have made of my life is in the cellar. If a Coltrane finds this, the work is his. If a stranger finds this in true need, take what you must to live. Bury me proper if you find my bones. I am sorry I never went home. H.C." Wade closed the journal. He sat for a long time without moving. His father's name had been Tom. He stood up. He walked outside. The morning sun cut through the trees in long gold ropes. The storm cellar door was right where his hand had found it the night before, only now he could see it plain. A square of weathered planks set into the ground beside the cabin, hinged with hand-forged iron. Wade pulled out his father's pocket knife, the bone handle yellow as old teeth. He turned it in his hand and looked at the maker's mark on the blade. H.C. Carved into the bone. Initials he had never thought twice about. He pried the cellar door open. The hinges groaned, but they held. A flight of 5 wooden steps led down into the dark. Wade went down. The cellar was a dugout under the hill. Stone walls. Dirt floor. Cool and dry. A workbench along one side. Shelves of jarred preserves long since gone to dust. A coil of rope. A fox trap on a peg. At the back of the cellar sat an iron strongbox the size of a small dog. Padlocked. Wade stood looking at it for a moment. He thought about Marie. He thought about his father, who had never once in his life mentioned his real father except to spit in the dirt. He thought about the bank truck rolling out of the gate. Then he raised the rifle butt and brought it down on the lock. The lock held. The wood it was bolted to did not. Wade pried the iron clasp the rest of the way off with his knife and lifted the lid. What was inside took the breath right out of him. 2 leather saddlebags. Heavy. He pulled the first one open with his thumb, and the morning light coming down the cellar steps caught on a pile of gold coins thick enough to reach his elbow. A folded letter sat on top of the bags. Wade picked it up. He carried it up the stairs into the daylight. He sat down on the porch step of the cabin. He unfolded the paper. It was the same handwriting as the journal. Older. Shakier. The paper had been folded so long, the creases were almost worn through. It said, "If you found this, the world has not been kind to you, and it has not been kind to me. I waited up here 40 years for my boy to come and find me. He never came. I do not blame him. I left when he was small. If a Coltrane finds this, it is yours by blood. If a stranger finds this, take what you need to live and bury me proper. Henry Coltrane." October 1937. Wade sat on that porch step for a long time. He looked at the gold. He looked at the letter. He looked at the morning. And for the first time in 11 months, he thought maybe his life was not over after all. He stayed there a long while. Just breathing. Just sitting. The birds had come back. Somewhere off in the trees, a creek he had not heard in the dark was running clear over stones. The storm was gone. The cellar was open. The work was done. He thought he might be all right. Wade heard the horse before he saw it. A wicker. Not dollar. The wrong tone, the wrong distance, the wrong direction. He stood up off the porch step. 3 riders came up out of the tree line on the south side of the clearing. They had come up quiet on a soft duff trail. Wade had not heard them until the lead horse spoke. By then they were 60 feet out and closing. All three men had rifles across their saddles. The lead man was old, older than Wade. White hair under the hat brim, hard mouth, hard eyes. He rode like a man who had been in the saddle more than out of it. The two riders behind him were younger, late 20s or early 30s. They looked enough alike to be brothers, and they looked enough like the lead man to be his sons. They had the bored, ready faces of young men who had done violence before, and would do it again before lunch if they were told. The lead man stopped his horse 20 feet from the porch. He looked at Wade. He looked at the open cellar door. He looked at the saddlebag at Wade's feet, and the gold coin Wade had been turning in his fingers without realizing it. "You got it open," the lead man said. Wade said nothing. "Took us 30 years to find this place again," the lead man said. "We thought we'd burned the only map." Wade's rifle was inside the cabin, leaning against the wall just inside the door. 6 steps, maybe 7. The old man dismounted slow. His knees did not work right. He kept one hand on the saddle until both feet were down. Then he stepped forward. He did not draw the rifle off the saddle. He did not need to. The two younger men still had theirs across their laps, hands resting easy. "Name's Cyrus Meade," the old man said. "I don't expect that means anything to you." "It doesn't," Wade said. Cyrus nodded, like that was the answer he had wanted. "It will." He pulled a folded piece of yellowed paper out of his vest pocket. He held it up. "This here," he said, "is a bill of sale dated August of 1934. Signed by one Henry Coltrane. Witnessed by my grandfather Eli Meade. It says Henry Coltrane sold this whole parcel of land, cabin, cellar, and everything on it or under it to my granddaddy for $10 and a sound saddle horse. Which means everything you're standing on and everything you found under it belongs to my family." He let the paper hang there a moment. "Now," Cyrus said, "you can ride out. You can keep your knife. You can keep your hat. You can keep your skin. We'll forget you were here. We've been waiting on this a long time, and we don't want trouble we don't have to have." Wade looked at the paper. He had read Henry's signature in the journal not an hour before. Henry's signature was square and deliberate and steady, the signature of a man who had taught himself to write and was proud of every letter. The signature on Cyrus Meade's bill of sale was loose and slanted and ran downhill at the end. It was not the same hand. "That's a forgery," Wade said. Cyrus smiled with half his mouth. "Doesn't matter what it is. It's a piece of paper with the right names on it and the right dates on it, and the sheriff in the county we're standing in is my cousin. So when I say it's a bill of sale, son, it's a bill of sale." The two younger men laughed. Wade took a slow breath. "What if I told you," he said, "my name was Coltrane?" The clearing went quiet. The two younger men stopped laughing. They looked at Cyrus. Cyrus's expression did not change for a long second. Then it changed all at once. The half-smile dropped off his face. He spit in the dirt. "Then I got even less reason to let you walk," he said. "Now here's the thing. A second ago Wade was a stranger who had stumbled into a hidden cellar. One quick lie, one yellowed paper, one sheriff cousin, and he could have walked off this mountain alive with nothing in his pockets. But the moment the name landed, the whole shape of the standoff changed. He was not a stray drifter anymore. He was the rightful owner of everything Cyrus Meade had spent 30 years trying to steal. And men like Cyrus Meade do not leave a rightful owner alive. If you're still with me, hit that subscribe button. We're nowhere close to done with this one." Cyrus jerked his chin at the two younger men. "Get down there. Bring up the rest." The two brothers swung off their horses. They walked past Wade like he was already a corpse. They went down the cellar steps 2 at a time. Wade heard them rummaging. A minute later they came back up, each carrying a saddlebag heavy with gold. Their eyes were huge and wet. They had never seen that much money in one place in their lives. Cyrus did not look at the gold. Cyrus kept his eyes on Wade. "You got 2 minutes," Cyrus said. "Walk down off this mountain, or we plant you under that cabin. The cabin's already eaten one Coltrane. It can eat another. Nobody comes up here. Nobody will come looking. Your bones will sit next to your granddaddy's, and the only difference will be the amount of meat on them." He let that sit. 2 minutes, he said again. "Starting now." Wade did not move for 10 seconds. The two brothers stood with the saddlebags slung over their shoulders, watching him. Cyrus stood in the middle of the clearing, with his hand resting on the butt of his rifle. Wade said, "I'd like to take my coat out of the cabin before I go." Cyrus narrowed his eyes. "It's cold," Wade said. "I'm walking out. You said I get to keep my skin. My skin freezes without my coat." Cyrus considered. He looked at his sons. He looked back at Wade. "You go in," Cyrus said. "I go in behind you. Boy, you stay on the gold." The younger of the two nodded. Wade walked toward the cabin door. He moved slow. He kept his hands out from his body where Cyrus could see them. Cyrus came in after him, 3 steps behind, rifle up off his hip now and pointed at Wade's spine. Inside the cabin, Wade walked to the nail where his coat was hanging. The rifle was leaning against the wall, just to the right of the coat. Its barrel was almost touching the wood of the doorframe. Cyrus could see it. Cyrus had seen it the moment he walked in. Wade did not reach for the rifle. He reached past it. He picked up the leather journal off the table. He held it out toward Cyrus. "Before you walk out of here with my granddaddy's gold," Wade said, "you should read what he wrote. About your granddaddy." Cyrus did not move. "There's a page in here," Wade said, "from August of 1934. Same month as your forgery. About the day Eli Meade came up to this cabin and tried to take what was in the cellar. About what Henry Coltrane did to him to make him leave. It's in his own hand. Same hand the sheriff's going to be looking at when he compares it to your bill of sale." Cyrus's jaw tightened. He should have shot Wade right there. But Cyrus Meade had spent 30 years circling this cabin, and the journal in Wade's hand was the only thing in the world that could undo every step of the journey he was about to make. He had to know what was in it. He could not help himself. He stepped forward. He held out his free hand. "Give it here." Wade gave him the journal. Cyrus took it. He stepped to the window. Better light. He held the rifle one-handed against his hip, and he opened the journal with the other. His back was now half turned to Wade. Wade picked up the rifle off the wall in one motion. He had levered a round into the chamber before Cyrus's head had finished turning. The click of the lever was the loudest sound in the world. Cyrus froze. The journal was open in his left hand. His rifle was angled away from his body. He was a 60-some-year-old man with bad knees, holding a heavy rifle one-handed, and Wade had a clean shot from 6 feet. Cyrus did not move. "Drop it," Wade said. Cyrus dropped the rifle. It hit the floor with a heavy thump. Through the open door, the older brother on the porch heard the thump and the click, and he was already swinging his own rifle up. Wade pivoted half a step and fired through the doorway. The shot was loud enough to bounce off the inside of his skull. The bullet hit the brother's rifle just behind the action, splintered the stock, and tore the gun out of his hands. The brother went over backwards onto the porch boards, yelling and holding his bloody hand. The younger brother on the gold dropped both saddlebags and reached for his sidearm. Wade was already in the doorway. "Don't!" The younger brother stopped with his hand halfway to his hip. "Off the gun," Wade said. "Hand off the gun." The hand came off the gun. The clearing was very quiet. The older brother was still groaning on the porch. Cyrus was still standing inside the cabin with his back to the window and his rifle on the floor. Wade said, loud enough for all three of them to hear, "Here's how this goes. The three of you mount up. You ride out the way you came in. You take that forgery with you. You burn it before you get to town. And you forget you ever came up this hill." Cyrus laughed short and hard. "Or what?" "Or," Wade said, "I send the journal to the U.S. Attorney's office in Cheyenne with a sworn statement and a bullet I dug out of the wall behind your granddaddy in 1934. There's still a hole in that wall, Cyrus. I saw it this morning. There's still a slug in it." He did not know if there was a slug in the wall. He had not looked. But Cyrus did not know that he had not looked. And Cyrus Meade, for all that he was a hard man, was not stupid. He had spent 30 years thinking about this cabin and the things his grandfather had done in it. He had always known some of those things would not stand the light. Cyrus stood there a long moment. Then he reached down and picked up his rifle by the strap. He carried it past Wade with the strap pinched between two fingers, the barrel pointed at the floor. "Boys," he said, "we're going." The younger brother on the gold did not understand at first. "Pa, we're going," Cyrus said. "Now." They went. The older brother got up off the porch holding his bloody hand. The younger brother helped him onto his horse. They mounted. They turned. They rode out the way they had come, at a walk, not a run. Cyrus did not look back. Wade stood in the doorway with the rifle until the last of them was through the trees, and then for a long time after. When he was sure, he set the rifle down. He went back to the cellar. He sat on the bottom step in the dark with his head in his hands, and he cried. He cried for Marie. He cried for the father he had never really known. He cried for the grandfather who had waited up here 40 years for a son who never came, and he cried for himself, and he cried for the 11 months he had spent on the road thinking he was the last Coltrane standing. Then he got up. He found Henry's bones in the corner of the cellar, wrapped in a horse blanket on a low platform of stones. Wade had not noticed them in the morning because he had not been looking. Now he looked. He carried the bones up into the daylight. He buried his grandfather beside the cabin. He used the fox trap as a marker because it was the only iron thing he could find. He stood over the grave with his hat in his hands, and he said the words he had not been able to say at his father's funeral, and at Marie's, and at his own mother's a long time before that. Then he went back inside the cabin, and he slept for 14 hours. Wade left the cabin at first light the next morning. He took one saddlebag of gold. He left the other in the cellar with the journal on top of it, and the cellar door closed and weighted with stones. He did not know yet what he would do with the second bag. He knew only that he could not carry it all at once and that he meant to come back. He walked down off the mountain the way he had come up. By the middle of the afternoon, 3 miles below the cabin, he found Dollar. The buckskin was standing in a meadow with his head down in the long grass, his reins trailing, his bedroll long since worked off and lost in the trees. Dollar lifted his head when Wade came around the boulder. His ears went forward. He did not run. Wade walked up to him slow. He put his hand on Dollar's neck. He stood there with his face against the horse's mane for a long minute. Then he tightened the girth and he climbed up. He rode into Buffalo 2 days later. He went to the bank. The same kind of bank with the same kind of glass doors and the same kind of polite young man behind the counter. Wade laid 1 gold coin on the counter. The young man looked at it. He picked it up. He turned it over. His eyes changed. "Where did you come by this, sir?" "Inheritance," Wade said. The young man went into a back office and came out with an older man, and the older man took the coin to a window for the light, and after a while the older man said, very carefully, "Sir, this is an 1873 double eagle. In this condition, this single coin is worth more than I make in a year." Wade nodded. "I have more," he said. He sold 7 coins that day. He kept the rest. The 7 coins paid off the mortgage on his old ranch in full, with enough left over to restock the herd and hire back 2 of the hands he used to know. The bank in his old county was so confused, they made him sign 3 different documents. Wade signed all of them. He signed them slow, the way Henry had signed his journal. Square and steady. Every letter clear. He moved back into his ranch house in the spring. The first thing he did was take down the brand iron the previous owner had left in the barn. He threw it on the scrap pile. He had a new one made. The new brand was a Lazy C. Wade had not known, until he wrote down to the Wyoming Livestock Records office and waited 6 weeks for a reply, that Lazy C had been Henry Coltrane's brand on a small outfit in the Powder River country in the 1880s, before Henry had gone up into the Bighorns. The records office sent him a photograph of the original branding iron. Wade hung the photograph above his fireplace. The brand he had made for himself was identical to the one in the picture. He had not designed it that way. It had just come out of him that way, the way the right name comes out of a man when he has finally remembered who he is. In the fall, he went back up into the mountains. He took a packhorse this time. He brought down the second saddlebag and the journal. He cleaned out the cabin and put a new lock on the door and a slate marker on his grandfather's grave with the name Henry Coltrane, and the years 1856 to 1937, cut into the stone with a chisel he had bought for the purpose. He came back down. He rode into Buffalo and passed the roadhouse where the old-timer had told him about the cabin, and he tipped his hat to the empty doorway and kept going. The old-timer was not there anymore. Wade left a $100 bill with the bartender to give to him if he ever came back. A year passed. One morning in May, Wade was sitting on his porch with his coffee when the postman came up the drive. There was one letter. The return address was from a town in eastern Tennessee that Wade had heard of only twice in his life, both times from his father, both times in the same sentence. Wade opened the letter. It was from a woman his own age. Her name was Sarah. She was Henry Coltrane's great-niece, on Henry's brother's side. She had been doing genealogy. She had found Wade's name in the Wyoming Livestock Records. She wanted to know if she might come out and visit, and she wanted to know if there was anything Wade could tell her about Henry, because the family had not heard from him in 3 generations, and they had always wondered what had become of him. Wade folded the letter. He sat on his porch for a long time looking out across the pasture. Dollar was grazing down by the creek. The new herd was bedded in the shade of the cottonwoods. The brand iron, Henry's brand, was hanging on a peg by the front door where Wade could see it when he came in or out. He thought about the night he had fallen on the log, about the door under the leaves, about the cellar in the dark, about how he had been a man with nothing in the world and had walked into the only place left in the world where nobody had thought to look. He thought about the old-timer in the roadhouse outside Buffalo and how that old man had been carrying a story that nobody else remembered, and how the story had found its way to the one man who needed it. He tipped his hat to the wind. "Grandpa," he said. Then he went inside to write Sarah back.